The following review may contain spoilers. The acting in this film was just phenomenal. The two leads were both great, Rosie Rodriguez and Zaira Morales as Carmen and Lola. And there's a really explosive scene at the end of the film when Lola's parents find out she's a lesbian, and of course they're Christian conservative and they don't take it very well. And they're played by Moreno Borja and Rafaela Leon. And it turns out all of these actors were non-actors. They were actual gypsies. And the job that the writer-director Arantxa Echevarria did with these non-actors is just fantastic. Again, the acting is phenomenal throughout here. Very naturalistic performances. Going back to Arantxa Echevarria, she is the writer and director, and she wrote a fantastic script with very natural-sounding dialogue. Also, it was an excellent choice not to have gratuitous sex or nudity. The movie easily lends itself to comparisons to Blue is the Warmest Color. It decides to go in the opposite direction of that, but the film still maintains an eroticism despite not having gratuitous sex or nudity. The lustful feelings the two girls have, the desire for each other that the two girls have, slowly build scene after scene as the boundaries of their physical intimacy start to chip away. The director shows that you don't have to go gratuitous to really make an erotic film. There's great use of birds as a metaphor here. It's not cheesy. It comes off very naturally because Lola is an artist and she's 16 years old, so she likes to doodle birds. I mean, that's believable. And I think she also graffitis birds onto walls. So the bird as a metaphor, like trying to fly away from your confines, trying to find your freedom, blah, blah, blah. It's done effectively here. It's not cheesy at all. The ending of the film is beautiful as Carmen and Lola run away. They take a bus to the sea, something they had mentioned doing earlier in the film. They get to the beach and the camera sits at a low angle while the two actors walk away and jump into the ocean. The vague ending is a great choice here. We're pretty sure that the lives of these two young girls will be difficult, but for this one moment, they're free. And of course, the theme of the film, the statement it makes against conservative cultures and their oppression of homosexuality. You could have easily based this film in a conservative American town. I'm thinking about a documentary called For the Bible Tells Me So from 2007. And there was a segment in that documentary where a girl writes a letter to her conservative mother coming out of the closet, and the mother quickly rejects the letter, leading to her daughter's suicide, and it was so tragic it actually brought me to tears. And then there was scenes here of Lola thinking about suicide as well. That scene where she's standing on the overpass and looking down on the highway with the oncoming traffic. It just shows how these issues occur everywhere and that the themes dealt with here are important in all walks of life. Alright, there's one huge problem I had with this movie, and it's the handheld camera. From what I can gauge, it was like 90% of the shots, and it reminded me of the style of the Canadian director Jean-Marc Vallée, who directed Dallas Buyers Club. Every single shot of his films are handheld. Okay, there's two things that would motivate the use of handheld. One, you're trying to shoot in like a documentary style, which means there's one camera, maybe two. They're shooting everything wide because nothing is scripted and they have to catch as much as they can because they don't know what's going to happen. It's all spontaneous. Well, that doesn't seem to work here. The shots don't seem like they're from the perspective of cameramen walking around trying to capture everything. A lot of the times the camera doesn't stay wide. It gets very tight on the actor, so that doesn't seem to work. The second reason why you would shoot handheld is you're shooting from a character POV or a third-party POV, and that doesn't seem to be here either. Sometimes they go to a specific character's POV, but that means the rest of it would have to be from like a third party, an invisible third party. Again, where the camera is placed doesn't really go with that notion at all. So that reason is not here either. So basically all of these handhelds, like 90% of the movie, most of them just feel unmotivated. Look, cinema is a language. There's a reason for a high angle shot. There's a reason for a low angle shot. There's a reason for an extreme close-up. So there's a reason for handhelds. If you're just using them and they're not motivated, it's just style for style's sake. And there were a couple of awkwardly directed scenes. There was one scene where Lola is walking to Carmen's house after she gets a bunch of texts that weren't replied to, and she decides to throw a rock at her window to get her attention, and then Carmen just shuts the window immediately. But for some reason, when Lola is doing this, she's smiling. Why would she be smiling here? She just had a bunch of texts that weren't replied to. And then she's like extremely disappointed when the window was shut. Wouldn't she expect that to happen? So that was a little off. And then there's a scene where Carmen and Lola go to like an abandoned pool, and they walk down into the pool, and you hear the splashing sound of water, but then you realize there's no water at the bottom. It was so strange. I guess it was like a stylistic thing where we were hearing what the girls were hearing. The girls were imagining there was water in there, but it was done in such a clunky way. These are just minor points, as the big problem here was the excessive use of handhelds. There's not a lot else to criticize here, as the movie was excellent throughout. My final rating for Carmen and Lola is 3.5 stars. As of the making of this video, the Rotten Tomatoes percentage for Carmen and Lola is 89%, which means the critics were right in the ballpark. The filmmaker, Arantxa Echeverria, does a fantastic job here with a great script and great direction of the actors. Movies like this that foster empathy in the audience are just so important and do so much more than just entertain.